849, 37 degrees, 590, 96.5 WKZO. Our next guest is Bridget Mary McCormack. She's a veteran litigator, legal scholar, and educator, and she's running for Michigan Supreme Court. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm pleased to. I feel like I know you because I've been seeing you so much on the media. You've been getting a lot of national attention for a PSA that you had a few friends put together for you.
I did. I know that. I had no idea what a nerve that would hit. I have to say, I think fans of The West Wing turn out to be a little bit like Trekkies.
Now, your sister was on the show, right?
My sister was on The West Wing for the last 3 seasons. She was the national security advisor. She kept our country safe. Okay, our TV country. And she was able to convince most of the cast, I think. An awful lot of them got together to make this great little PSA about voting the nonpartisan section of the ballot, and that was really the main goal of that piece, was to increase voting down in the nonpartisan section in the judicial races in particular, where it's unbelievable how many people don't cast a vote at all.
Well, right. And I think this year where people are saying, usually I have an open mind and I vote some Democrats and some Republicans. This year I'm just going to hit the button. And that doesn't do anything for the lower part of the ballot.
No, and and I'm afraid a lot of people don't even know that. So some people don't vote in the nonpartisan section of the ballot because they just don't know who to vote for, so they don't want to cast a vote for someone they wouldn't otherwise want to vote for. Other people think they have voted in the Michigan Supreme Court race, which appears on the nonpartisan section of your ballot, when they fill out the straight party ticket. So they vote straight party Republican or they vote straight party Democrat, and they assume that means they've voted for the justices nominated by those parties, when in fact that is not the case. Unless you actually go to the nonpartisan section and fill out the little bubble by the candidate's name. You'd have to look for Bridget Mary McCormack and fill out the little bubble by my name to actually cast a vote for me. Otherwise, you have cast no vote.
Why should we fill in our bubble for you?
Oh, well, you should fill in the bubble next to my name, because I'm going to work tirelessly to make sure everybody in Michigan gets a fair shake in our courts and restore public confidence to our judiciary.
Tell us a little about your background.
I will. Thanks for asking. I'm my current job, which is a fantastic job, is I'm the dean for clinics at the University of Michigan Law School, and I'm a law professor there. And I get to teach law students about the important role our court plays in our system of government, why it's different from the other branches, and why its different role is important to how our system of government operates. And in our clinical programs, which is the most fun part of my teaching, we represent people who wouldn't otherwise have access to courts and access to lawyers, and we try and improve the way the justice system works for everyday Michiganders, and we do it in a variety of different contexts. I started a domestic violence clinic, a pediatric health advocacy clinic, the Michigan Innocence Clinic, and even an entrepreneurship clinic. We have a variety of different clinical programs students work in and provide legal services to people who otherwise wouldn't have it. And in my view, they learn things they could not learn in the traditional classroom, and do a lot of good in our communities at the same time.
Can you give us some examples of some big cases that have come up to the Supreme Court? Like, how do they get to you? I mean, how do they get up there?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people don't really understand what the court does and why it matters, and that's another reason maybe why there are fewer voters in this election than the rest. But the court makes decisions every term, every year, that affect so many things that all of our families and communities care about. I mean, every year the court's making decisions that affect our families, that affect our safety as patients, safety as consumers, our environment. You name it, the court has the last word on it most terms. And the way the Michigan Supreme Court works is, unlike the trial courts, where if you have a dispute, you go in, the trial court resolves it, Michigan Supreme Court actually takes very few cases. I mean, a lot of the work they do is reviewing requests for them to take a case. So they might get, 200 cases in a month, and they have to review all of those requests and decide which of those 200, and they usually only take about 10% of them, it makes sense for the court to take. And they are taking cases that basically have an enormous impact on the state, on its families, its communities, its economy, and not just taking cases to basically correct errors. So the court is making very important decisions each term, and it really matters who sits on it.
Can you give us some examples of some decisions that have been made lately?
Well, sure. So, I mean, the most recent example that I think captured the attention of much of the media and maybe a lot of citizens was the Michigan Supreme Court that decided which of the ballot proposals that are going to be on our ballot this fall would make it to the voters. Ultimately, I mean, there was you may have followed, or listeners may have followed. There was some dispute in the lower courts, as well as in the lower boards in the government agency about which ballot proposals could be put before the voters. And the Michigan Supreme Court ultimately had to decide that question. As you may know, in most cases, the court decided all of those ballot proposals are going to the voters. I think there was one that did not, but the court decided that the voters get to have a say on all of those. Now, had the court decided the other way, people wouldn't be voting on some issues that they may think they should have a say on.
So you're running for the Michigan Supreme Court. Now, what happened? You know, maybe some people don't know how this works. Like, if you are elected for this, do they give you time off at U of M, or do you have to quit your job?
You know what? It's a great question. I will resign from the university if I win, and the reason for that is the university occasionally has cases before the court, and I think having any permanent affiliation with the university would prevent me from being able to decide any of the university's cases. In fact, I may well be unable to decide cases for some period of time, no matter what. But certainly, if I had some permanent affiliation, I think it would at least raise some questions about my ability to be impartial. So I will resign from the university if I win on November 6th, which will be a little bit sad for me, I have to say.
Yeah. Bridget Mary McCormack. Well, best of luck to you. The election's coming up just around the corner. And the point that you must take away from this, and from her awesome PSA that you may have seen on TV, is that you have to be proactive about voting for her and for the other candidates who are in the nonpartisan portion of the ballot.
That's right, Lori. Thank you for making that point. The more people who vote in this race, the more our public confidence in our courts will be restored, and that's my main message.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
You too. Thanks for having me.